not everyone was pro-war. So this is Hugo Ball, and he was one of the oppositioners to World War One, and he created the Dada movement, which started in 1916. So he started off from a place called Cabaret Voltaire, which was just a back room from a restaurant in Zurich, and he was trying to prove to the world, like, how can you be so acting like you're so civilized when you're sending so many people to their deaths. He also sought to draw attention to the European middle class life, which was kind of in an impoverished state. So a lot of people were kind of grouping together as part of this Dadaist movement to basically satirize what was happening at the time and to let the public know how they felt, which was essentially that the European culture was contradicting itself by acting very bourgeoisie when in fact they were sending everybody off to war. The name itself had no political charge. The word Dada is a meaningless word, so that's why they used it to describe their group. The Dadaist movement extended to dance music, poetry readings, and other forms of performance and art. The idea was to create a spectacle, and people were also drinking, and they're trying to basically confuse the public at the same time. So a lot of times they would get together and sing gibberish and try to restore what they were hoping to have in Europe, after this madness of the war, this sort of a counter movement was trying to seem almost like the anti-art. They took a very opposite approach to creating design. As you can see in this image by Hans Arp, there is a desire to create an artistic and anarchic change through their artwork. There's a lot of rejection of different established rules of making art. So this is sort of um, their way of showing that they're rejecting these traditional methods. It almost looks like a somewhat disorderly mess when you first glance upon it, and I think that's pretty much what they were going for. They were trying to create something extremely abstract and unidentifiable, confusing and confounding, sort of meant to intrigue people a little bit surrounding the mystery of the Dada movement. And not only does this image look like it was created by chance, it actually was created by chance. The artist dropped the pieces of paper and wound up gluing them together where they happened to land. So they were willing to show something as artwork when it was in fact made without any control. There was a complete lack of control when they would create something like this, and this was meant to not have any painstaking effort. This was just, something kind of left up to chance, something randomized as much as possible. Their main goal was to change the ideologies of Europe, and while they did agree on one thing, which was that they all wanted to end the war, what they were not trying to create was an establishment of any new set of rules of any sort. By the Dada artist Tristan Tzara, and what you can see immediately upon viewing this image is that there is a complete chaos, a complete anarchy. Words are going diagonal, they're overlapping on each other, they're being printed backwards, so the letters are illegible, they're printed upside down. So this is extremely opposite of what was going at the time, where during the war efforts, when they created propaganda posters, they were trying to make a very clear message. This, on the other hand, was very blurred, literally difficult to read, difficult to look at, disorderly and chaotic image. And interesting enough, the space is completely filled. There isn't a whole lot of negative space available. The edges, the artwork goes all the way into the edges of the page. And so we have to realize that at the time, this was extremely revolutionary. This was completely messing with viewers' ideas of what they were expecting to see. This was, today we've seen so many images like this. We intentionally seek out the grunge effect, but at the time this was absolutely ridiculous to see something that appeared to be thrown together without much regard, without much attention to beauty. So the goal was not to beautify, it was meant to disrupt the nature of people and kind of force them outside their box, force them to think about things a little bit differently and perhaps get some more creative and fresh approaches. And you can find a little bit more about the Dada group's priorities if you read the Dada Manifesto. So it's just a direct opposition to social hierarchies and just sort of just a new beginning. And even room for it to contradict itself, just to keep people on their toes, to never really establish itself, to create an ongoing sense of disorderliness and disruption. From the covers of one of Tristan Tzara's Dada periodicals. So this cover is still, it's difficult to read typography. There's still this diagonal quality to it. It's not quite as chaotic, but yet, that's very Dada because we're being taught not to have expectations for certain things. So this is contradictory in the sense that you have this diagonal text, but you also have a more legible font up here. And in this image, contrary, you do have much more negative space, but you have, the words here kind of going in a bursting design. So just kind of keeping you guessing. And with the ongoing issues, each cover would look different. They had nothing to do with the previous covers. Nothing was stylistically the same. And art wound up taking this Dadaism to France after the First World War was over in 1919. So this created even more notoriety for the group. I also wanted to mention this poster from 1921. This was to advertise an exhibition at a gallery in France for the Dada artwork. And this was called Salon Dada. And so even though at the top of the page there is actually legitimate information regarding the location and the name of the gallery, how to go there, the dates of the exhibition. So all of this is actual real information about the event. But as you look through the poster, you'll start to see some really odd things. So it looks almost like the words were copied and pasted, just like leftover stock images that the printers might have laying around. But in fact, these were all actually created by the artist, Tristan Tzara again, to look as if they were just stock images, but they were made directly for the purpose of this poster. He even wrote over here in this square, nobody is supposed to ignore Dada. So it's a little bit gibberish, but he knew what he was doing. But the joke on the audience was that these looked like they were kind of a mismatch. So once again, playing with our minds. And so you'll start to see something here at the bottom. There are a lot of fonts out there created now where they deliberately use for each letter a different style of font. So you'll have the serif, the sans serif, large capitals, lowercase, just an enormous mixture. The letters are also skewed around, so it almost looks like copy and paste from different headings, all mismatched together. So this was actually meant to look as random as possible, where you have each letter sort of has a different orientation. It's this is referred to as a faux type. So he's done pretty much everything short of orienting the letters backwards. And to highlight another aspect of Dadaism that we see very commonly today, which is known as the photo montage. So this is something we see all over the place, including especially movie posters. This does not seem revolutionary to us, but at the time this was huge, especially considering the sources where some of these images had come from. So this is the artist Hannah Hoch, and the image is called Cut with a Kitchen Knife, Dada Through the Last Weimar Beer Belly Cultural Epoch of Germany. Was actually one of the rarer women among the Dadaist movement. Apparently, her works are a little bit sardonic, and they're critical of mass culture, um, the industry of the time, kind of gaining momentum in mass media. We're starting to see a lot more commercial photography. This is a direct critique of Weimar Germany in 1919, combining images from newspapers of the time, kind of remixed to create a statement about life and art in the Dada movement. And the Weimar Republic was a semi-presidential representative democracy established right after World War I, and this was what was replacing the imperial form of government. So it's named after the city of Weimar, where the Constitutional Assembly had taken place. So this was this was before the Nazi era, and Germany was called the German Reich, or Deutsches Reich. And this piece was seeking to criticize the political extremeness of the time, and yeah, so this was very good use of the photo montage. It definitely grabs your attention. Like I said, this was revolutionary for the time, even though it is something that we see constantly today. So that is a little bit about what Dada means and what inspired it, the events of the time with the ending of World War I, and how they were able to represent through visual art their mission to kind of create chaos and anarchy.